Under our public comment period tonight, our first speaker will be Ms. Laura Carana. If you would come forward, address to the podium and give us your name and for the record, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Laura Carana, and I'd like to speak briefly on the SPLOST vote. A year and a half ago, I stood in this spot right after the SPLOST vote failed, and I explained to you why I personally voted against it at that time and what it would take for me to support a future SPLOST. I asked you for two things mainly: to incorporate formal public input on the project list and to increase transparency and accountability in SPLOST project management. And since then, I've watched you address both of those requests, most of it in the last 6 months or so under the leadership of our new county manager, Bill Fallon. You implemented a public online survey on infrastructure needs in the county. You hosted dozens of in-person town hall meetings to solicit feedback, and you made changes to your draft project list as a result of that feedback. To increase transparency and accountability, you've beefed up the county website to include more information about SPLOST. You've hired a new county communications manager and have created a new county position that didn't exist before, dedicated to overseeing the timely and efficient management of SPLOST projects. And all of this was enough to convince me that things are moving in the right direction, and I voted yes on SPLOST this year. I tried to be just as vocal about my yes vote as I was about my no vote last year, including writing a letter to the editor in the Brunswick News last month. So I want to thank you for taking these positive steps, which clearly have moved the needle of public opinion enough for the SPLOST vote to pass this year. But it probably won't surprise you that I didn't come here tonight to pat you on the back. Sorry to disappoint you if that's where you thought I was going with this. The reason I'm here tonight is to remind you that all of those positive steps you've taken, all of the good progress that's been made in the last 8 months, none of that is extraordinary or outside of your job description or outside of the expectations of the citizens of Glynn County. Being in touch with the priorities of your constituents and managing our resources wisely and efficiently to improve the quality of life for everyone in Glynn County, that's the bare minimum of what we expect of our elected officials. That's how local government should work. And when I say this, I'm addressing the board in front of me now, but also Mr. Sweat and Mr. Clark, if they're listening, who will take office early next year. And as a side note to Mr. Sweat and Mr. Clark, to keep in mind for when you do take office, the county organizational chart currently shows the Board of Commissioners as the top square on the chart, with the rest of the county government reporting up to you and with you reporting up to nobody. And this might give you the incorrect impression that you're not accountable to anyone. Before June of this year, the org chart was more accurate, and it showed that you, as the Board of Commissioners, report up to the electorate of Glynn County, the citizens of Glynn County who elected you into office. So someone may have messed around in Microsoft Word and removed that box on the org chart, but I want to make it very clear that it changes nothing about where the power sits in this county, which is with the people. So now that SPLOST is passed, here is what the people of Glynn County expect from you. We expect you to appoint a Citizens Oversight Committee that has access to the county project manager to work closely with him and has access to all the financial and project data that they need in a timely manner, and has the commitment from this board to listen to their recommendations and take them seriously. We expect you to be good partners with the City of Brunswick and the 4 other bodies who will be receiving SPLOST funds, and to promptly disperse those funds when they're due. We expect you to be transparent about any potential conflicts of interest or possibly perceived conflicts of interest, which means disclosing when bids are submitted or contracts are signed with companies with which you or any other county employee have a business or family connection. We expect you to be transparent about how many bids you're receiving from minority-owned and veteran-owned and women-owned businesses, and how many contracts you're signing with those companies. And we expect SPLOST collections to stop when they're supposed to. We expect clear and proactive communication with the public around that process to avoid any confusion about how it's going to work. So I'm glad that SPLOST passed this year because it means we'll be able to get some important projects done in this county. But as we're all aware, this was not a landslide vote or even at all lopsided. The public trust that allowed SPLOST to pass is not easily earned, and it can be very easily lost. I'm encouraged by the recent progress I've seen, and I can assure you that the engaged citizens of Glynn County will be doing our part to keep that progress going. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker tonight is Mr. Alex Voss. If you would come forward, please. State your name for the record.
Alex Voss, here to ask a couple questions as far as how you all got to the decision to lease the parcel of property for the billboards, item number 13. Lamar has 2 existing billboards on that same parcel. We actually have an easement for a 3rd billboard on that parcel, and to this point, we've been unable to get the county to sign off on a permit to build that billboard. So again, that's an easement that predated the county's ownership. It was purchased from International Paper, so just trying to figure out how you all got to the decision that's on the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Voss, and our attorney will address that with you. Thank you. I want to take a few minutes to start this evening with a bit of good news. And last week, when most of us were either sitting in meetings discussing the tropical storm Nicole or watching the Weather Channel for updates of the storm and watching a chemical plant fire, there was good news going on in Glynn County. The Glynn County Recreation and Parks Department was named Georgia Recreation and Park Association the 2022 Agency of the Year. This award was presented to Director Lisa Garganis and other rec and park staff by Georgia Recreation and Park Association President Holly Browder at the annual conference award banquet held last Wednesday, November 9th at the Jekyll Island Convention Center. The Agency of the Year Award recognizes exemplary agencies to deliver recreation, park, and leisure-related services and has made a significant contribution to the recreation, park, or leisure services movement and is awarded per population category. This is the first time Glynn County Recreation and Parks has ever won this prestigious award. I want to congratulate the Glynn County Recreation and Parks staff and their director, Lisa Garganis. This is an award of which to be very proud. I also want to thank for all that they do in Glynn County. And if you would, please join me in recognizing this great group of people. Ms. Garganis, there you are. If you would come forward, please, and with your staff. Most of the staff are out
Mr. Chairman, if I may. I want to really thank the Recreation Department. I went over to that conference, had the opportunity to speak briefly, and sat through the whole conference, and there was a lot of tough competition over there. I learned a lot about what was going on, so it's an extra star or a few for y'all to win that award. You had a lot of tough competition, so congratulations.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve consent agenda general business.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner O'Quinn, a second by Commissioner Booker. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Public hearings, and let me remind our audience that there are 9 public hearings tonight, so we're going to try to move through them as quickly as we can. Public hearings will be limited to 30 minutes for each opposing side, with 5 minutes allocated to each individual speaker. Comments are to be limited to relevant information regarding your position and should avoid being repetitious. If your group has a spokesperson, please allow that individual to present your group's position in the time allocated, and your cooperation is greatly appreciated. Item number 4.
Commissioners, Paul Andrews, County Engineer. Item before you is an abandonment request pursuant to the board's request to staff to abandon unopened and unused alleyways on East Beach. This is the 3rd of the group of blocks that are coming before you. This will finish out the west side of East Beach, west of Bruce Drive. Information about the areas to be abandoned. This is a 3rd of the group. As part of the recommended motion, the owners will have 3 years to have a survey prepared if they want to participate in this and take advantage of the action, assuming that it gets approved, to have a survey prepared and submitted to the county. Based on that survey, the county will then produce deeds for the individual parcels and have those recorded. And the attached map shows the portions of the alley that this item tonight is relative to. It does not include those alleys that are being used by utilities nor being used for access to parcels. The blue area represents the whole of the blocks that are before you this evening. The red shading are those alleys that are relevant to this action. Some of the blocks, they had the alleys were either all had utilities in them or were being used for access. Typical view of one of the east-west alleys, looking from the alley adjacent to Bruce Drive. Back here is the treed alley area. These folks have put a small shed and cleared out the alley on their property. This is a typical view of a north-south alley. This has landscaping planning, some fences. On the other side here is a similar landscaped and a driveway. This one I included because the driveway is only on that half of the alley. The utilities, they had identified those alleys that they didn't want to have abandoned, and we removed them. And staff, your county staff is requesting that you include a drainage easement over these whole areas for current and future needs of drainage. We received several phone calls regarding this abandonment request. All were informational. Nobody seemed in opposition to the action before you. Possible actions and a possible motion. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Andrews, why was item 4 and 5 not combined?
This one, well, there were two separate applications. Item number 4 is one that came forward with the Board of Commissioners request. Item number 5 is an individual action that was requested by the property owners. They didn't want to wait until that section came forward to y'all. They said to move ahead and have it done.
It was a selfish question. Thank you.
All right, this is item number 4, AB 5304, and is to consider the abandonment of certain alleys in blocks 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, and 29 of East Beach subdivision as indicated by the shading on the location map in our packet. Mr. Andrews has given us a narrative of what this involves. Commissioners, before we open the public hearing, are there any questions? If not, this is a public hearing. Any that wish to speak in opposition of this abandonment, if you'd please come forward and state your name for the record. Any to speak in opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close that portion. Any that wishes to speak in support of this abandonment, please come forward to speak in support. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and Commissioners, we're back to you.
Chairman, I'll make the motion, we'll put it back up there. Thank you. I move to approve the abandonment of certain alleys in blocks 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, and 29 of East Beach subdivisions as indicated by the shading on the attached location map with the above referenced requirements for survey and recommendation for drainage easements. Further, if the appropriate surveys are not submitted to the county by the individual property owners within 3 years of this date of action, this abandonment action will be revoked for the alley adjacent to the individual property.
Have a motion by Commissioner Fendig.
Second.
Have a second by Commissioner O'Quinn and Commissioner Booker. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Item number 5, AB 5106, consider the abandonment of a portion of the unopened alley right-of-way in Block 22 of the East Beach subdivision as shown on the attached application map, with drainage easement being conveyed to the county over the whole area of abandonment. And again, Mr. Andrews.
Sir, Commissioners, again, this is a request from the property owners to have one half of the alley to the rear of their property abandoned. Currently, the alley is not open for public use. There are no utilities in it. This is the same dedication information from all the East Beach subdivision plat. The alley appears to have been in the same use for some time, probably have a more recent cleaning up and maintaining, but this is the area. The item y'all just heard is on this side. This is the area of abandonment, more particularly behind this house at 4214 11th Street. Survey that was prepared for the area. This is the area to be abandoned. Main house, a small auxiliary house or accessory house on the property. It is just outside of the abandonment area or the current right-of-way. Picture of that's the accessory use building and the unopened alley here. That's looking west. Looking east is very similar. Bamboo is generally down the property lines. Utilities didn't have any need for retaining of utility easements. We would ask that a drainage easement be retained over the area. We did not hear any public comments on it. Actions and motion.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Commissioners, before we open the public hearing, any comments? All right, this is a public hearing. Those that wish to speak in opposition to item number 5, AB 5106, please come forward and state your name for the record. To speak in opposition. Seeing none, hearing none. Those that would speak in favor of 5106, please come forward and state your name for the record. Those that would speak in support of. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and Commissioners, we're back to you.
Ron, if you put the motion back up. Thank you. I move to approve the abandonment of a portion of the unopened alley right-of-way in Block 22 of East Beach subdivision as shown on the attached application map, with a drainage easement being conveyed to the county over the whole area of abandonment.
Second.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Fendig, a second by Commissioner Rafalski. Any other discussion on the matter? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Item number 6, public hearing land use, ZM 5229, Fancy Bluff Road West. Consideration of an application to rezone 2 adjacent parcels, parcels 02-00736 and 02-00737 from the Forest Agricultural FA zoning district to one-family residential R12 zoning district to allow for a one-family residential neighborhood. Jake Hightower, Robert Civil Engineering, agent for Aaron Taylor and Melvin Sim, Bushy Creek Enterprises LLC and Rock Branch Investments LLC owners. And Ms. Leaf, to you.
Good evening, Commissioner. Stephanie Leaf, Community Development Department. This is ZM 5229, and this property is located off of Fancy Bluff West. So the access onto Fancy Bluff Road West is off of Blythe Island Highway, and that is the only access point into this area. So it's currently an FA zone property, and they're rezoning to R12 to allow a one-family residential subdivision. And R12 allows 12,000 square foot lots. FA allows 20,000, so it'd allow them to have smaller lots on the property. The property has a mobile home, one of the parcels has a mobile home, the second is vacant. Due to the size of the property, it's about a 19.22 acre project site, so they could do a maximum number of dwelling units would be 40, and that's based on that 12,000 square foot lot size, or about 2.08 dwelling units per acre. And the maximum for the zoning district would be 3 dwelling units per acre. So these are the 2 parcels here, and the access is kind of off the screen to the left on the Blythe Island Highway. There's a survey of the property, and this is their sketch plan just showing where they would propose to do the development. Or they don't have a plat yet, but this is the area. The MPC did consider this at their November 1 meeting, and they did unanimously vote. It was a 7-0 vote to recommend approval of the rezone. And these are your proposed or possible actions this evening. And I believe Bert Etheridge is here, or Brian Hunt representing the applicant. And I'm happy to answer questions as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Leaf. Commissioners, is there any discussion before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone that wishes to come up and speak in opposition to ZM 5229, please come forward and state your name for the record. Any that would speak in opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close that portion. Those that wish to speak in favor of ZM 5229, please come forward and state your name for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time tonight. Jake Hightower with Robert Civil Engineering, here to speak in favor of this project, as I'm also representing it, but want to take the opportunity to come up and be available for any questions, should you have any, for this project. Thank you.
All right, we're still in the public hearing. Any others that wish to come up and speak in favor? All right, seeing none, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and Commissioners, we're back to you. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the zoning request as stated.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Tostison, a second by Commissioner Booker. Any other discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Item number 7, ZM 5231-2220 Perry Lane Road rezone. Consideration of an application to rezone 2220 Perry Lane Road, parcel 03-11560 from the Forest Agricultural Zoning District to the Highway Commercial HC Zoning District. Brian Hunt, Robert Civil Engineering, agent for John Carr, Southeast Baptist Association, Inc., owner. And again, Ms. Leaf.
Thank you. ZM 5231, 2220 Perry Lane Road. And this is also a currently FA zone property, and they're looking to rezone to highway commercial. So the site currently has an existing building. It's the home of the Southeast Baptist Association, and they are looking to have a different commercial use in this space, Yates, Astro, Termite, and Pest. So it was determined that the office building or the office use is an existing non-conforming in the FA, and so for Yates, Astro, Termite, and Pest to come in and have their office there, it would require the rezone to highway commercial. So that is what they're intending to do. And this is the property here off of Perry Lane. And at this time, there's no changes that are proposed to the building that we're aware of. The MPC considered this at their November 1 meeting, and they did unanimously 7-0 recommend approval to the Board of Commissioners for this rezone. And Brian Hunt with Robert Civil Engineering is here representing this applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leaf. Commissioners, any comments, questions? Okay, this is a public hearing for ZM 5231, 2220 Perry Lane Road rezone. Any that wish to come forward and speak in opposition, please come forward and state your name for the record. Any that would speak in opposition to ZM 5231. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close that portion. Those that wish to speak in favor of ZM 5231, please come forward and state your name for the record.
Commissioners, Brian Hunt with Robert Civil Engineering, here speaking in favor of this project. I'm also a representative, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Any others that wish to come forward and speak in favor? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And Commissioners, we're back to you.
Well, I guess we're exterminating the Baptist, huh? I'll make a motion to approve the proposed zoning decision.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Brunson, a second by Commissioner Rafalski. Any other discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Item number 8 we received a request to defer this item, ZM 5242. Can I get a motion to defer? Have a motion by Commissioner Tostison, a second by Commissioner Booker to defer item number 8, ZM 5242. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Item number 9, ZM 5235, Thickpen Residence, Manhead Marina rezone. Consideration of an application to rezone approximately 1 acre of upland located at 100 I'll get it in a minute. 100 Manhead Marina Drive, parcel 02-00098 from Conservation Preservation, CP, to Planned Development District, PD, to allow one single-family resident and accessory uses. James A. Bishop, the Bishop Law Firm, agent for Paul Thigpen, applicant, and Manhead Marina, Inc., owner. And again, Ms. Leaf.
Thank you. This is ZM 5235, Thigpen Residence. So this property is located off the FJ Torres Causeway. So the only access to the property is off the causeway heading eastbound to St. Simon's Island. It's currently a conservation preservation parcel. It is a former marina. It was called Manhead Marina. And currently there's a dilapidated house and a dilapidated dock on the property, and it's vacant. It's not being utilized at this time. So the applicant is interested in rezoning the property to Planned Development District in order to build a single-family residence on the property. So the PD is limited to one single-family residence, and the additional request is to increase the maximum height to 45 feet. In the Conservation Preservation Zoning District, the height limit is 35 feet, so the request is an additional 10-foot allowance of 45 feet. So here is the property. This is the causeway heading over to St. Simon's Island. This is the property right here. And the bottom is just a little zoomed in. So as you can see, there is one driveway access that comes off eastbound causeway that accesses into the property. So it's a larger parcel, but there is about 1 acre of upland, and that's the property that's subject to this rezone, is just the upland area. So under the current zoning of conservation preservation, these are the permitted uses. They're pretty limited. Residential is not an allowed use or conditional use unless it's affiliated with a cemetery or a wildlife refuge. So both a cemetery and a wildlife refuge can have a caretaker's residence, but that's the only residential use that's allowed or conditionally or permitted under this CP zoning. And this is a list of conditional uses. So the comprehensive plan does show this as coastal marshlands on both the future land use map and the character area map. So this is the rezoning exhibit that the applicant submitted. Again, here's the upland portion and the survey. And the applicant's architect did compile some digital renderings of what a possible conceptual of what the structure may look like. This would be a single-family residence that could be constructed on the property. So there's a few images here that just show some different vantage points. So these photos are looking kind of towards, you can see the causeway behind the house, so looking kind of towards the causeway. So these images, on the top image, the causeway would be on the right-hand side here. And on the bottom image, the causeway is really kind of on the left-hand side. So this would really be your view as you're heading eastbound, looking onto the property. So here the causeway would be on the right-hand corner here. So this is in the Mainland Planning Commission jurisdiction. So this is the very edge of the Mainland Planning Commission. So they are the ones who held the public hearing for the Planning Commission level. So they did vote unanimously 7-0 at their meeting on November 1st to recommend approval of this rezone to the Board of Commissioners. These are your possible actions. And Mr. Jim Bishop from Bishop Law Firm is here representing the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leaf. Commissioners, any questions before we go to public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Any that wish to speak in opposition to ZM 5235, please come forward and state your name for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Miriam Lancaster. I'm a resident of St. Simon's Island. I'm here to speak to you tonight about one very important aspect of the plan development text, which was not discussed at all in the presentation to you, the potential for billboards on this site. The requested plan development text provides for a single-family resident. However, the text also provides that signs will be permitted as outlined in Article 8 of the zoning ordinance. Article 8, Section 809D of the zoning ordinance allows billboards in a planned development. Section 810.5 provides that all signs incorporated into the PD development statement are permitted. By incorporating all of Article 8 into the PD text, the applicant will be entitled to place billboards on this property adjacent to the FJ Torres Causeway. The visual pollution of the marsh and river views and the degradation of the entrance to St. Simon's Island by the placement of one or more billboards on this property cannot be overstated. The property has been zoned conservation preservation for decades. Future land use plan shows it as coastal marshlands with the intent to protect and control development on this ecologically and aesthetically sensitive site. The PD will allow for 45-foot tall residents which is already a significant change from conservation preservation. But all of this begs the question, why does a single-family residence need commercial signage of any kind, much less a billboard? Clearly, it does not. There is a simple solution to this concern, because you know I don't like to just come complain to you. I like to give you a solution, and here it is. In your motion to approve, delete the portion of the proposed PD text that incorporates the entirety of Article 8 of the zoning ordinance. In its place, incorporate the allowable signs for conservation preservation zoning that's found in Section 810.4. These are the standards that are currently applicable to the property. These standards will allow the applicant to install one non-illuminated sign of 12 square feet in area and temporary or historical signs of 6 square feet. That should be more than sufficient to identify a single-family home. You know, and you heard this tonight during public comment, that outdoor advertising companies are quite aggressive regarding their legal rights to erect billboards. Because of this, the citizens of Glynn County and you as our representatives cannot rely only on the current applicant's intent. Mr. Thigpen will not always be the owner of this property. If the PD text is approved as submitted by the applicant, any current or future owner of this property will be entitled to erect billboards. If the applicant does not agree to this modification, I request that you deny the proposed rezoning. Thank you very much for your attention to this important issue and for your service to Glynn County.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Alice Keyes, and I'm with the organization 100 Miles. I live here in Brunswick and have been a resident of Brunswick for the past 14 years. I am here to speak in opposition to the zoning request before you now. Conservation preservation zones are critical to the health and safety of the community as well as our natural environment. The area that you are discussing tonight is designated conservation preservation and has been identified as future marshlands for a reason. Sea levels are rising, storm surges are coming. We're seeing these storm surges affect the Torres Causeway and surrounding areas just in the past week and a half. We have seen the impact of this. By allowing this conservation preservation area to be rezoned as a PD will endanger not only the residents but also the visitors, and you have to consider the emergency response teams that will be responsible for going out and protecting the individuals who may be stuck there should a storm occur and affect the area. So I speak about human safety as a high priority to consider, but I also want to consider the impact that those marshlands in that area has on the surrounding environment. The area is identified as marshlands on the future land use map, again, for a reason. Those marshlands are protected through the Coastal Marshlands Protection Act that was passed in 1970 because of the services those marshlands provide to the community residents as well as the shrimp and the fish that spend their time in our county's marshlands. There's a great deal of flexibility that's built into planned developments. And as identified earlier, the idea that a single-family residential home as well as a marina would allow a lot of activity, including billboards and things that are just out of character with that beautiful drive that we get to take when we go over to St. Simon's Island from Brunswick and then back. It is an area that needs to be protected for the environment, for the natural resources, for the vistas, and for public safety. So I encourage you to really think about the public welfare of the county as a whole and the individuals that are applying for this. Changing this plot of land from conservation to preservation, as is being requested now, is a bad idea. It is within your power to determine and to make a decision that our community can be beautiful and safe, healthy and prosperous, and also uniquely individual and provided for. The land use regulations that are in place right now and the zoning that affects that area, the conservation preservation, should be upheld in order to offer an orderly and predictable way to further the prosperity of this county as a whole and protect the individuals who are here. So I encourage you to deny the rezoning request before you now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else that would come up and speak in opposition to ZM 5235? Seeing none, hearing none, those that wish to speak in favor of ZM 5235, please come forward and state your name for the record.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Jim Bishop. I represent Mr. Paul Thigpen, who is standing here next to me, and who's the applicant here. I'm happy to take something off the table. We agree with the billboards. I do not know where that ever came from, but it was not from us. So if whatever you do, if you need to add that as a piece of it, we thought it was not permitted anyway. So we've never even discussed it, never thought about it. So to the extent we need to clarify that, we're happy to do it. As with most of the clients that I represent, we work very carefully with the planning and zoning staff. Stephanie has been very helpful in doing this, and we assemble the best consultants, we think, in the business. We've got, with respect to the DNR and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Dan Busey is back here with us tonight. We have Roberts Engineering. They have been involved in all this. Bert Etheridge with Roberts, Shoup Surveying. Gary is back here today. Kevin Higgins is a noted architect, and he's the one that developed the plans. Frankly, when I saw the plans, I said, holy smokes, it is, and by the way, just as an aside, an asterisk, the taxes that are paid on this piece of property are like $2,500 or something like that. I'm not sure the extent to which the improvements will be made on this, but believe me, it's going to be multi-millions of dollars to develop this. And Mr. Thigpen intends, by the way, he is a tax-paying voting member of Glynn County today, and he wants to up the ante on being the tax-paying citizen that he is and do this. It's a unique piece of property. Interestingly, a little history, I represented the young man who owned this piece of property. He inherited it from his daddy, and it was a marina, and it has always been a marina. It'll never be a marina again, if Mr. Thigpen is allowed to do what he wishes to do out there. So, and essentially, like I say, it's a down zoning as far as we're concerned. So we are here. We've got our team here, as I've said, to answer any and all questions that you all might have with respect to this development. And having said that, we're here to answer whatever question you may have.
All right, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of ZM 5235?
Can I make a statement as well?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, but the lady who just came up and spoke, I actually agree with her. So the beautification of coming on the island, I actually travel 2 hours and 10 minutes a day to go to work and come back. I do that because I love this place. I absolutely love it. I am home. This is my home. This is where I retire. So that has to say something, the travel time I make. So with that being said, when coming over the bridge, if you look over there, what some of you may or may not know, currently the location's been used as for drug addicts. That's what's there. Anytime you want to go there, I show you where it is. There's always drugs there. I'm constantly picking up stuff off the ground, constantly getting people out of there that shouldn't be there. I don't even want to say publicly what I've seen, but I've seen things that people shouldn't see on that property. The building is there, the house is there, it's absolutely trashed by vandals. It's absolutely trashed. The dock is absolutely trashed by vandals. So the public, when they coming over, they see trash. That's what they see. If they look, it is absolutely destroyed. And I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna make it beautiful and something for people to be proud of. And when they see it, they'll say, that's nice. And that's, and that's the dedication I'm gonna make to this property. And with respect to all the surroundings, we just asked for the upland. I completely agree. I don't want to mess with frogs and crickets or nothing like that. I just want, we're just doing a house. That's all we're doing. So I don't see us interfering with any any marsh park. So that's where we're at. Hopefully you guys approve.
Entertain any questions, Commissioner.
Mr. Bishop, Commissioner Booker and I have got a question. Is that in my district or his? Neither one of us have ever campaigned there, so we really don't know whose district.
Commissioner Brunson, we did some research on that too, and I think we ultimately concluded that it's yours.
It's mine?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
But you can share it. You know, we're happy to do that because it's going to be an improvement.
Dramatic improvement.
All right, the public hearing is still open. Anyone else that wishes to come forward and speak in favor of ZM 5235, please come forward and state your name. Okay, seeing none, hearing none, and then a strong desire to keep moving, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, it's back to you.
Just a couple of questions there, Mr. Bishop, before y'all leave the podium there.
Yes, sir.
I didn't hear back from the DOT. What is the latest? You know, they're going to be taking down the old bridges there that are split, the old causeway, and they are going to rebuild the existing bridge there and move it to the north. I understand, but it's always been an issue of getting in and out of that property, and the easements. It's been a while since but I don't know about the easement and the right-of-way through there. What is the status of all that with the DOT?
You know, I don't know that I can tell you, but you're talking about there's an interest in the Department of Transportation to rebuild those bridges?
Yes.
You got to be kidding. You know, that's interesting. That's really interesting. What in the world would that cost if they were to do it? And and
they're going to do it. It's already done. I mean, they're going to do it.
They're going to rebuild the bridges.
They're going to rebuild the
That bridge is going north of the current bridge.
Yeah. Well, you know, I will tell you this, by the time the environmentalists get through with all that, it's going to be pretty interesting. But you know, we can, you know, what we'd like to do since we're here, Bert, you got some information on that?
A little bit.
Come on up. Come on up.
Sorry for the attire. I was rushed to get here, but my name is Bert Etheridge. I'm representing Robert Civil Engineering. Like you said, they're moving it to the north, but it's the first bridge. They're not going to start realigning all the bridges all the way down. So
They're realigning that bridge because it was a bad design. It gets hit by tugboats going through there, and the structure is weakened.
I thought it was the first.
What they're going to do is take the old McKay River Bridge out, the 1953 bridge that is now closed. People used to fish off of it. And if you look in your picture of the house there, the bridge is, the old 53 bridge, of course, is not linked. It's a passageway through it. But they're taking those down. In my last conversations with them, because when we had a lot of discussion when they closed people from fishing off of there, that they were going to use that as a staging area right there. And then it was also relocating the downside of the bridge on the west side and would change the ingress and egress out of that property. Like I said, I emailed them and left a message. I didn't hear back as to where that's project at, but I know it's starting within the next 2.5 years. All of that's going to be demolitioned, everything. They're going to take the whole bridge down and the old bridge. So
I thought it was the first one, not the.
Yeah.
When you say first one, which one are you referring to, Bert?
The one by
Jerry Creek.
Golden Isles Marina. I thought it
Yeah.
was that
No.
one.
No, they're taking down the McKay River Bridge.
And previous to that, because I tried to buy that property twice, it's great. I was going to put a marina in there. I used to run the marina there at Morningstar for a long time. When I inquired with them, there was questions of title and access and easement off of the causeway on that property. That's a state road, actually, in front of the property. So anyway, I don't have any answers from them or y'all.
And y'all may be absolutely correct. And apparently you've got more late breaking news than we have on that. But I would respect, and what you're saying, I think makes some sense. Is Mr. Thigpen, interested in going out and spending a whole lot of money when that bridge is going to come down? And it's sooner or later. But again, I would tell you that I think it may take a long time to get through whatever the regulators, number one, and environmentalists, number two. But what we would respectfully ask that you do tonight, go ahead and approve, if you would please, what we have submitted here. And in the meantime, we'll do our best to try to get to the bottom of what's going on from that perspective.
Well, I can't speak for my other commissioners, but I can't vote to approve when I've had a lot of conversations with the DOT about all that causeway and particularly that project. And I'm just going off of what their conversation was with me, is there's some legalities and staging area, and I don't mind, deferring this and coming back. I tried to reach the DOT guys that would give me the answer, and I didn't hear back from them. So,
well,
I mean, that's just my
got
concern. I'm just telling you
yeah.
what they said is that the old McKay River Bridge, they're taking down first, and that was all going to be a staging area right there in front of that marina, in front of that property on both sides for debris and bridge removal. So it would even block your access in the easement there. I think the state owns that passageway. Anyway, that's...
Yeah.
I had hoped to hear back from DOT and get those answers, but I didn't get them. But I know the conversations I've had with them.
If I may, I did talk to somebody today, and I asked the question of the DOT, and I was told that they have no interest in it as it sits, but that doesn't mean that couldn't change in the future. So right now, the DOT doesn't, they don't, neither way. It doesn't bother them. It's private land, so.
It is, yeah.
But
they'd have to condemn it, really.
well, yeah, but I think the whole thing is when they move the roadway, the roadbed will shift. And if they take the old roadbed out, does that mean he's going to have to go to the state or who to connect back into where the causeway is? It looks like it's far enough back where you come in that he could still get in.
Yes, sir.
But because the new bridge is going north of this. I knew of that about, 18 months, 2 years ago. And they're supposed to start it in '24, I think. But, that's the only concern. But I had a lady email me about this, and I finally got an answer late this afternoon that the the DOT, one way or the other, they don't have a dog in the fight. But it is just to note that there could be a problem in the future.
Sure. Aaron, there's no way the DOT could deny him access to his property. Is it by using it as a staging area or demolition or whatever? They have to allow him access to his property, do they not?
That's a better question for the DOT than for me, but I don't want to pretend to answer what DOT would or wouldn't say to that. I think
how could they legally deny him access to his?
I don't, but I think for tonight's purposes, in terms of the rezoning request itself, the county's not, certainly not, you're not endorsing what the DOT will or won't do with those bridges. This is simply a right to use it for that purpose, and it would be up to the applicant or the property owner to make sure it is okay with the DOT. That would be decided at the permitting process.
Well, Aaron, the truth of the matter is that, again, it's private property. Whether, we haven't bought the property yet, it's under contract, all right? So whether the current owner deals with it or we deal with it, somebody's gonna have to deal with it. But the DOT, in order to do what they want to do with it, is gonna have to take it, from the owner. They just can't march out there and do whatever they want to do. And so, I think that, now that we at least are somewhat aware of this, I think the responsible, my client, I think, would like to get it approved if we can get it approved. And then we're going to do a pretty good job of researching what's going on before he starts spending a bunch of money.
How time sensitive are you, Jimmy? I mean,
well, it's not, Billy, it's not something we want to do tomorrow, but we have, again, we've spent a lot of time, effort, energy, and money doing all of this, and,
well, it sounds like you're going to spend some more.
Well, yeah, but I can tell you, he's not going to build a multi-million-dollar house on that piece of property out there with the looming possibility of the DOT coming in and taking it.
Would it be prudent to at least hear from the DOT?
Well,
You know?
Aaron sat with me in the meeting, I believe Walter was there, when we met with the DNR and had extensive conversations about the bridge, and we also had meetings with the DOT. That road is a DOT right-of-way access to the old causeway. And that was, they're demolishing both sides, the side right that you have shown in your picture, and they were going to stage right at that end, was what they told us at that time. That's been last year. And they told us that they were starting this project within 3 years, and that was a year ago, so they're clocking down on to get going on that project. I mean, I'm just saying, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't hear back from them, but I know that's the conversation.
If he's willing to accept it and deal with it, I mean, I don't know, I guess what we're supposed to be considering is what's before us now.
There's a zoning issue.
And
Let me tell you,
I think the biggest issue was, we had the young lady ask about the billboards. And I think they're okay with not doing away with that.
We never thought about putting a billboard out there. And would it accept whatever y'all need to, we need to, whoever needs to. And frankly, we never thought the billboards would ever be permitted. I'll tell y'all, there's never been 1 second worth of discussions about a billboard out there, zero.
Well, that's in the ordinance, so I mean.
Well, we heard you agree to that, and we appreciate that.
All right, look here, since I know now it's in my district, I'm going to make a motion to approve ZM 5235 with the condition that no billboards or advertising of any kind will be permitted on the property.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Brunson, a second by Commissioner Booker to approve. Any other discussion on the item?
Is that the way it's stated, consistent with the way Ms. Lancaster spoke about? Is that correct?
I suggested that you delete that section of the PD text. It is in the text, and we don't want it in the text, because the text makes it law.
All right, let me,
I'm not a lawyer, but please delete it from the text.
I haven't had an opportunity, I'm gonna have to talk to my folks here about the plan development text and whether or not we're splitting hairs, or does that eliminate anything else we got going on out there? So that's what I'd be concerned about. And again, we are good with that. Deleting a piece of the text might have, Aaron, are you with me on that?
I mean, we can make an amendment to the PD text.
Right.
Because
Well,
it's a PD text.
Yeah.
Right. It will need to be amended or deleted at this point in time. So I think in part of doing that motion, it will be deleted from the text.
Well, you're talking about the section that she was talking about. What I want to do is eliminate the possibility that she is talking about signage or billboards. That's what I want to do. I don't want anything else to get caught up in the deletion of some section.
Sure.
Well, that's what I thought I said.
Yes, it was, Commissioner.
But honestly, I couldn't remember what Ms. Lancaster had said there about that section 80, whatever it was. So the intent of the motion is there's not going to be any billboards or signage on that property.
Yes, sir.
I was asking for clarification. I mean, there's a motion on the floor. I was asking for clarification. And so I guess the clarification I'm asking for, is it consistent with what she had said? She said it is not. But Aaron, did I also hear you say that it would be deleted based on the what the motion was made?
We will delete that section that allows them to do that. But what I'd like to do, just to make sure the applicant is okay with it, is pull up the PD text so we can identify that. Can we pull that up?
I just want to say that if I put a billboard on, my family would kill me, so there's no way that's happening.
Well, you know, this property's going to outlive you, Mr. Thigpen. It could be somebody else there one day, as Ms. Lancaster said.
I got a 27-year-old year wife, so she wouldn't have any of that.
This zoning will go to perpetuity, though.
Hang on.
Well, while he's doing that, I'm not necessarily against you having that project. I'm just going off of what the DOT told me for that project. And obviously, that may include egress and ingress into your property. It's presumptive to say that you have that or not. I don't know, based on what I heard the DOT say. I wouldn't imagine they wouldn't work it out, but I didn't get anything back so I know you want to do it now, but I'm not against you on the house, but I can't approve something that's unanswered with the DOT when there's a major project of all time going right there. So.
Cap, I guess I don't blame you for that. And we don't want to get bogged down. But we're interested in knowing what the DOT is doing. But my experience with the DOT, like your experiences with the DOT, is that it takes forever to get something done with them. And you're talking about a bureaucracy. It's incredible. Worse than that. But what you got, Steph? Hang on, let's see.
So, Commissioners, just a couple things. Just on the bridge, Commissioner Rafalski was correct. Currently, it is programmed for 2024 by GDOT. Of course, that's what it's currently programmed for. So here's the plan development text that is proposed. So number 4 is the section on signs, and this is what Mr. Bishop is referring to, and Ms. Lancaster as well. So currently, it does refer back to the entire sign section that's in our zoning ordinance. The sign section does talk about billboards, are allowed in PDs, but our staff interpretation of that is the PD has to explicitly allow billboards. So if it was zone PD and billboard wasn't allowed use, then the billboard would be allowed. In this situation, a billboard is not specified as an allowed use. It's not referenced anywhere. So we're confident that it would not be allowed. However, to be just not to have any kind of doubts at all. What we looked at was potentially, there could be just a flat statement of billboards are prohibited instead of taking out the entire section 8. But I'm not sure if
I think
has some other comments on that.
the motion takes out all the ambiguity. I think there's not any question.
Yeah, I think the issue is, what happens 20 years from now? And is there a door for someone to walk through and all of a sudden commissioners can get before them an opportunity someone wants to put a billboard there because something was not tied up completely now?
I agree. Yeah. All right.
So Commissioners, rather than
What's the
delete that section 4 right there, I might suggest that we add the language that Commissioner Brunson suggested, which is that billboards and other commercial signs are prohibited.
Okay.
We totally agree. Couldn't agree more. And I think that eliminates any ambiguity.
Well, you have a motion on the floor, correct,
Have a
Chairman?
motion and a second on the floor. Or any other discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is 6 for. Those opposed, 1 against. Motion carries.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Item number 10, CUP 5244, 100 Ocean Road, Sea Island Conditional Use Permit. Consider a conditional use permit for the installation of a pool deck, fence, and native landscaping seaward of the development setback line pursuant to zoning ordinance section 727 Beach and Dune Protection District. The approximately 1 acre property is located at 100 Ocean Road, Sea Island, parcel number 05-01148.
Excuse us, we can have silence, please.
And an oceanfront portion of 200 Ocean Road, parcel number 05-1330. Property is zoned Resort Residential RR and Beach and Dune Protection District. Daniel H. Busey, agent for Sea Island Company LLC and Sea Island Parcel OGC LLC, applicants and owners. We're going to have to get through pretty soon, or I'm not going to be able to read. Ms. Leaf.
Great, thank you. This is CUP 5244, and this is a conditional use permit related to improvements that are seaward of the development setback line. So as you all may recall, the ordinance was changed early this year, so it is a 25-foot development setback for the beach and dune. So this is in the ocean forest area of Sea Island. So this is the parcel here. So it currently is a kind of clubhouse amenity center that has been demolished, and they are proposing a condominium hotel development on this site. And so here's a site plan showing what they are proposing. This is the planned building. They do have an outdoor pool and spa area right here. And then the colored area is what's within the seaward of the development setback line. So the pool is landward, so the pool is not part of the proposal, but there is a portion of the pool decking, fence, and native landscaping. And I do want to point out, I didn't get a chance to swap out the plans, but the applicant has amended these two very, I think actually, yeah, I have it zoomed in, two very tiny spots right here and right here that are shown on the plan as non-native landscape. They are switching that to native landscape. The reason for that is we don't allow any non-native landscaping seaward of the development setback line. So in order to conform with the ordinance, it does have to be native. So I just wanted to point out the applicant has submitted a plan that has just turned this to native, these very small two spots there. The IPC did consider this on November 15th. It was a 5-0 vote with 2 commissioners absent to recommend approval of the application. And these are your possible motions. Dan Busey is here representing the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leaf. Commissioners, anything before we go to the public hearing? This is a public hearing for CUP 5244 100 Ocean Road, Sea Island, conditional use permit. Those that wish to speak in opposition to this public hearing, please come forward and state your name. Those that would speak in opposition. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close that portion. Those that wish to speak in favor of CUP 5244, please come forward and state your name.
Good evening. I'm Dan Busey with Resource and Land Consultants representing Sea Island. The plan here is a very relatively small section of some hardscaping. Everything else that we're proposing in the development, seaward of the development setback line, includes dune restoration enhancements. A fairly large portion will be left as is, and some native plantings. So very little hardscape and a fair bit of dune enhancement. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to come forward and speak in favor of CUP 5244? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, we're back to you.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the conditional use permit with the condition that the native landscape correction will be made on the plan there and implemented.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Brunson, a second by Commissioner Fendig to approve CUP 5244. Any other discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Item number 11, TA 5262, Limited Industrial Zoning District Ordinance Amendment, consideration of a county-initiated request to amend Glynn County Zoning Ordinance Section 718-2, Limited Industrial Zoning District, to add new permitted uses. Proposed uses are school offering instruction in art, music, dance, drama, gymnastics, cheerleading, or similar cultural activity, and gym or fitness studio. Before we take your comments, Ms. Leaf, Mr. Attorney, have we verified that we are duly notified for this item?
According to Ms. Leaf, we are.
Ms. Leaf, when was it notified?
Yes, sir. So both of the Planning Commission hearings as well as the BOC hearing were all noticed on October 10th. So that was in the Brunswick News on October 10th.
All right, sir. And Mr. Attorney, there's not an expiration date for that notice?
Correct. Well, it has to be no earlier than 45 and no sooner than 15. So we are within that window.
Within the window. Okay.
It included that information. Yeah.
Do we have any information?
Yeah, the notice that was published on October 10th included the date and time of both the Islands Planning Commission hearing, the Mainland Planning Commission hearing, and the Board of Commissioners hearing.
Okay. And did we defer this item once before?
No, sir, this is your first public hearing. You have had a work session on this item, but this is your first
Okay.
public hearing on this.
All right. So this is a public hearing. Commissioners, any comments, any questions on this? All right. This is a public hearing. Any that wishes to come up and speak in opposition to TA 5262, please come forward and state your name for the record.
My name is Jeff Kilgore, and the ordinance is specific that the notice must include the date, time, and place of this hearing. And in October, this agenda was not set, this meeting was not set, and this public hearing was not set. So I would, at this point, verbally ask for an open records request to see those notices that Ms. Leaf claims exist. Thank you.
Anyone else wishes to come up and speak in opposition to TA 5262? We'll close that portion. Any wish to speak in favor of TA 5262? State your name for the record, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kaylana Norris, and I am the gym owner and program director of Firehouse Chair Athletics. I, for one, am in favor of this ordinance amendment, and I'm here to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishes to come forward and speak in favor of this TA 5262? Seeing none, hearing none, the public hearing is closed, and Commissioners, we're back to you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the county-initiated request to amend the Glynn County zoning ordinance, section 718.2, limited industrial zoning district, to add new permitted uses. Permitted uses are to include school offering instruction in art, music, dance, drama, gymnastics, cheerleading, or similar cultural activities, and gym or fitness studio.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner O'Quinn, a second by Commissioner Booker. Any other discussion on this? I'm going to take a point of privilege to add that this applicant has been trying to get this business open for how many months? 4 years. This zoning was, she found a location. She is a competition cheer provider. She needs an operation where she can get the height required to do the jumps that are required as part of what they do. We've been trying to get this done. Our light industrial zoning did not include this use, and the course that was originally taken was they would have to rezone this to a commercial zoning. The other businesses that are part of that tax parcel had no desire to change. They are light industrial. But because our ordinance did not include this specific language, we've had to jump through these hoops to be able to allow this. So I believe, Ms. Leaf, our medium density, or medium industrial, heavy industrial, has very close to this language allowed in it, but our light industrial did not. Am I relatively on base with that?
Yeah, there was some language, if it was affiliated with a permitted use, that did allow something like this, but not as a standalone use. So this was the best path forward for this to be a standalone use.
That is the reason this has been brought forward. So any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Item number 12, TA 5263, Planned Development District Ordinance Amendment, consideration of a county-initiated request to amend the Glynn County Zoning Ordinance, Section 723, Planned Development District, to outline procedures for amendments to the master plan, including establishments of procedure, criteria, and limits. Excuse me, Ms. Leaf.
Thank you. So this is a county-initiated amendment to the zoning ordinance. And you may recall in September, the board at their special called meeting held a work session on this item as well as the limited industrial item. So you coming out of that work session, staff did develop some draft ordinance and reflecting some of the feedback given at that work session. So just kind of as a refresher, what we were asked to do was look at potential language that would allow some administrative changes to master plans. And so the criteria is pretty specific for what this might apply to. So this would be a plat that had been approved by Glynn County that may conflict or deviate from the approved master plan. And I guess this is planned development districts that have master plans. The second point of the criteria would be construction plans based upon that plat have been approved by Glynn County, and construction has commenced on the improvements depicted in the construction plans. So it needs to kind of hit all of these, and it's a pretty small group. We have over 400 planned development texts in the county, and we estimate approximately 20 or so would kind of fall into this category. And then the specific changes that could be done administratively, if this amendment is approved, are limited to changes to street access or alignment, the location of public or common areas, the location of internal collector streets, and the location of points of access to public rights of way. So any kind of changes to uses or densities would not fall under that. You would have to go through the full public hearing process for a rezone to do anything more than what's just listed here. So there were 3 different changes. 2 were presented to you at your work session in September, and the third was based on feedback from that work session. The first option is that these specific administrative changes would be or could be approved administratively by the community development director. The second option is the community development director would review the changes, but that person would need to have concurrence by the county manager in order for it to be approved. So the county manager would be the final decision on that. And then option 3 is the changes would have one hearing in front of the Board of Commissioners and would not require a planning commission hearing. So it would shorten the process in time. You wouldn't have a planning commission having a public hearing. It would go straight to the Board of Commissioners to consider those changes. In all these options, we also added a 30-day time frame, and that was also feedback from the work session, where staff would have to make a determination on which path to follow within 30 days of an applicant requesting this amendment. And then if a proposal does not fit any of this criteria, then they do go through the full public hearing process with the commission and the board, just like we do with any other kind of rezones. So I went through these at the work session, but just a few of the examples that we had run into throughout the county was Autumnswood, Tanglewood, Majestic Oaks were just a few examples of what this had looked like. So these are the PD texts that are also in your packet. The Islands Planning Commission did look at this or have a public hearing on this on October 25th. They did unanimously recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of option 3, and option 3 is the one that does require one public hearing before the Board of Commissioners. The Mainland Planning Commission, at its November 1st meeting, it was a 5-2 vote, so 2 commissioners were opposed, voted to recommend denial of all 3 options for the proposed amendment. Some of the concerns shared during the MPC's deliberation were possible impacts of changes to adjacent property owners, just kind of some unintended consequences, and there was just an interest in having a full public hearing process so adjacent property owners would know about these potential changes. And so these are your possible actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leaf. This is an item, Commissioners, that I have pushed, and I have pushed it because of the 2008 recession. In 2008, a lot of properties around the county were foreclosed. Initial owners were taken out. And prior to that, master plans that were submitted and approved were subsequently not consistent with what the county commission at the time approved as the construction plans for each phase. So to have to go back like in the Tanglewood subdivision, which I at one time owned. I did not initiate it. I'm not involved with it now at all. But the master plan called for several community, smaller ponds and lakes surrounding the subdivision was part of the initial master plan. When the county commission approved that subdivision, ultimately, they had collected all the small lakes into one big lake, and there's a 17-acre lake at the back of the property that is the drainage and retention for the entire property. When the new owner came forward to apply for phase 2 of this property, it was said that it did not comply with the master plan. But to make it comply with the master plan, they would have had to have filled in the 17-acre lake and realigned all the streets that come into phase 1 to a different point when there's already houses at all of those intersections, and then dig small ponds in that, which is effectively impossible to do. So in an effort to keep from going through months and months and months of rezoning to get to the process to do what we inevitably know has to be done, you cannot fill in a 17-acre pond to go back and create streets. I asked for a way to streamline these master plans that predated what the county commission at the time they were approved to go in, and the county accepted, inspected, and implemented according to the plans and specifications that that commission approved. And it's not to circumvent any planning commission or to do anything to undermine the processes of the county. It's simply when it's in front of you for your eyes to see that you cannot fill in a 17-acre lake and create small lakes where it's an impossibility. And it basically is set for those subdivisions that had existing master plans and a different phase 1 than the master plan that predated it, to that the master plan could be overridden and not have to go through a process of the county has in effect already overridden that by approving the plan that was ultimately put in the ground. So that's the background behind it and the reason I brought it forward. So any discussion before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. TA 5263, any that wishes to get up and speak in opposition to TA 5263, please come forward and state your name for the record.
My name's Jeff Kilgore, and I have been here many times before and asked you to study your own ordinances and to know how to conduct these meetings. Your ordinances incorporate Robert's rules. I'm incredibly disappointed in your county attorney that he didn't stop you. Robert's rules specifically prohibits the chairman from taking over a meeting. You can't even speak on an issue. You need to suspend the rules, or you need to recuse yourself if you're going to speak on behalf of something and turn over the chairmanship. Everything that you just said is totally inappropriate and violates your own ordinance. But having said that, I don't understand how you think that you're not overriding or circumventing, because your ordinance is specific. In any development, whether it's the one isolated Tanglewood that you cite, I don't know who approved putting a road through a 17-acre pond, but if that's what it was approved, then what's the difference in you starting a brand new development and having to come before the planning commissions and ask for them to approve it, and to notify the adjoining property owners and the people who have already bought property and live there and have invested in and have a right to know what you're going to do if you're going to come in and take over control of something that's been approved previously. I did an open records request, and I asked for every single PD that was affected. Now, you're being told that there are only 20. Well, what the staff said is they have no idea that they produced 23 copies to me, but said that did not include all of the current PD text that could be regulated if this ordinance amendment is approved. So you don't even know how many property owners may be affected. You don't even know how it might affect their property value. And it's not an inconvenience to have to come before the planning commissions and get something approved. It's not an inconvenience to have a public hearing here. And I'm going to protest any approval that you do on the basis that you couldn't possibly notice a hearing on this day in November, in October, prior to the planning commissions having fulfilled their charge under the ordinance to approve this amendment. You didn't know that it would be approved for recommendation to this board or denied. You didn't know anything at the point in time that Ms. Leaf claims that the notice for this meeting was properly published in the county organ. And so until I see that notice, I want to put you on notice that anything you do here tonight may be in violation of your very own ordinance. Thank you.
Anyone else that would speak in opposition to TA 5263?
For the record, I like cheerleaders. I wasn't against her application, but I couldn't speak against this one and not speak against the earlier one.
State your name again for the record, please.
Good evening again. My name is Alice Keyes, and I'm the Vice President of Coastal Conservation with 100 Miles. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'm really here to speak about the opportunity to encourage individuals to participate in the public process. The public hearings that are offered at the Planning Commission level and at the Board of Commissioners levels are really a window for neighbors and members of the public to engage in decisions that you have the authority to make. And so I would encourage you, as you think about this ordinance revision, to really think about the opportunities, the limited opportunities that the general public have to participate in the public process that affects their community. You know, as we have spoken before, we support the update of the zoning code that you're currently undergoing right now. Zoning is a very good tool that communities can use to establish rules for how their community would like to develop. It's kind of the playbook that will lay out the landscape that our children and our grandchildren will grow up in. And when the public is denied the opportunity to engage in decisions about often very large properties, especially these planned developments. A lot of the planned developments are very large. I don't know the specifics about the 20 that has been discussed here, but these can often be very large developments, and every opportunity that you give the public to engage is transparency into how the community is growing. So I encourage you, as you vote on this, to consider increasing or maintaining the public hearings that are currently available through the Planning Commission as well as the Board of Commissioners. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in opposition to TA 5263? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, those who wish to speak in favor of TA 5263, please come forward and state your name. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, we're back to you.
Mr. Chairman, just as a thought, I'm sort of thinking about that option number 3. I think we would be ill-advised to take the public out of the scenario and just turn it over to summarily letting staff amend these things. I think there are a lot of probably unintended consequences that would happen there, not the least of which it puts a lot of pressure on the staff. I mean, it gives them power, but it also creates a lot of pressure that they probably don't want. So I think at some point, I think the public needs to, if it's a zoning change, the public needs to be a part of it at some level. That's all I'm going to say.
Is this a zoning change, though? I didn't think it was a zoning change.
This is, yeah, it is a change to the Planned Development District section of the zoning ordinance. So it's,
But it's not a change to the actual, it's not specifically a change to the actual PD. It's the allowance of some things to be moved within the PD once the original PD was, for lack of a better word, broached or not completed as fully presented. Is that correct, or planned?
so no, so it would change the actual planned development district. So I mean, yeah, this changes actual zoning ordinance change to the section that allows PDs, but then if this is passed, then it would be a true change to the planned development text.
And
The planned development text in the master plan. So I mean, there's really no narrative or language that really would be changed with this, but it'd be the master plan that would be changed, and that's part of the planned development district, so it's all combined.
And speaking to the Tanglewood subdivision, if the master plan were upheld, there would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of a dozen houses that would have had to have been destroyed.
No, I understand what you're saying. I guess what I was saying is the idea of this is to try to create a way to look at changes on master plans that are particularly old, that have not completely been followed, which we see quite often, and find a way in order for remedy to be made fairly quickly. Is that a fair statement?
It is, and that's how it's a small number because it is, a lot of our PDs are either completed or they've never been started. And this is kind of this middle area that they might have been started 15 years ago. And as you know, the chairman stated, I mean, they got stuck in the recession and didn't really do anything for many years, and they wanted to restart again. And you know, we found that there was this conflict. So, so yes, it is a kind of a way to really to clean those up and make sure that the development can continue without having the first phase have to tear out infrastructure to be compliant with the master plan.
Yes, I agree with what Commissioner Brunson is saying. I think we need to have at least a hearing. But I also understand what the chairman's point. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to try to require that. So that seems like, option 3 seems like the best compromise.
Looks to me like option 3, all it does is take the planning commission out, right?
Correct.
A public hearing. But it's still, the public hearing still comes to us. So instead of 2 public hearings, you got 1.
Right. That's correct.
Okay, gentlemen. Do I hear a motion on item number 12, TA 5263?
Hold on, let's see. Go back to, I would like to
to-
see the two planning commissions votes again one more time, please.
Yes, sir. So Island Planning Commission selected option 3, and that was unanimous. That was the BOC public hearing. And the Mainland denied all 3, and that was a 5-2 vote to deny.
And would you go back to the motions, please? So if I'm interested in making a motion for option 3, I would need to speak to item I, is that correct? And put option 3 in there, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It'd be option 3. It could be similar to what the Islands Planning Commission. So option 3, which requires 1 public hearing by the BOC.
Okay. Could I have the motion? Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the ordinance amendment as outlined in option 3 as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner O'Quinn, a second by Commissioner Rafalski to approve the motion with option 3 as presented. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your right hand. That's 6 for. Those against? 1. Item carries. Item number 13 under general business, consider approval of a lease agreement with Be Seen Outdoor, Inc. for a portion of parcel number 03-16565 adjacent to I-95 for the erection of 2 billboards and this item was deferred from the November 3, 2022 meeting. Mr. Attorney, who's got this?
Commissioners, I'll be glad to take this up if you'd like. So, Commissioners, before you this evening is a lease agreement with Be Seen for up to 2 spots at exit 38 that would allow up to 2 billboards on county property. The terms of the lease would be $600 per month per billboard, or 20% of the revenues from that billboard, whichever is higher. I know we've talked about this at a work session in terms of the logistics and everything, and I will talk to Mr. Voss after this meeting in terms of what we are aware of their application on another spot. What he's referring to is that our ordinances allow up to 4 billboards per quadrant. Currently, there are 2, and they do have a pending application for a 3rd. I've spoken to Mr. Jones of Be Seen about that application. He is aware of our rules and what that means for his application, or at least the lease agreement. Again, this is up to 2. It's a lease for it, but they still have to go through the application process to get the actual permits for the signage. So that would be the next step after this, and that would be subject to all applicable rules and regs. Not only our rules and regs, but the state's and DOT's rules and regs. So they are aware of that. I will speak to Mr. Voss after this, or whenever is convenient, as to their pending application for that. But that's the kind of the summary of the lease. If there's any specific questions that I haven't mentioned or gone over, I'm happy to discuss them.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any discussion on this? Or do I entertain a motion?
Chairman, I move we consider approval of the lease agreement with Be Seen Outdoors, Inc. for a portion of parcel number 03-16565 adjacent to I-95 for the erection of 2 billboards.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner O'Quinn, a second by Commissioner Brunson. Any other discussion on the matter? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That is 6 for.
I have to abstain due to family relationships.
And 1 abstention. Mr. Attorney, do we have anything for executive session tonight? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce a guest we have with us. Is it Laura? Laura Stanbaugh. She is...
Lydia.
Lydia, I'm sorry, Lydia Stanbaugh. She is former Commissioner J.R. Stanbaugh's niece, Scott Stanbaugh's daughter, and she's a third-year law student. After tonight, she's probably going to enter medical school. But but we're glad to have you up visiting with us and give your folks our best.
Thank you for being here tonight. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, motion to adjourn.
Have a motion by Commissioner Rafalski, a second by Commissioner Tostison. All in favor, please raise your right hand. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.